Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE. So this is the 800cc V-Strom. This happens to be a demo model, which makes it a pretty good model to buy. It's got about 2,500 kilometers on it, and that means it's a little discounted. But what we're gonna do in this review is not worry about the mileage. We're gonna do a complete overview, complete review of this motorcycle. Now, I'm filming here at McLean Sports, and they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if I don't cover what you want to know about this bike in this video, make sure you subscribe. Let me know in the comments below, because I will come back to this bike as many times as possible to make sure I answer your comments both in the comment section but also in future videos. So if you have questions, let's create a video database of all the information that you want to know, and let's hopefully make this channel something that fills in all of your answers. And again, McLean Sports here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Let's get going with the review of the bike. All right, let's cover what this bike is and where it sits in the class. We all know there's a 650, we all know there's a 1050cc version of the V-Strom that's been around since, close to 20 years. That 1050cc used to be 1000cc, but at the end of the day, just over 1000cc, around 650, and then this one comes into slot in the middle. Now the V-Strom name came from V being the V engine, right? It doesn't have a V engine on this one. It doesn't have a V-twin engine like the other two V-Strom bikes. So this is the new engine from the GSX that we've already reviewed on this channel, the 8S that we've reviewed on this channel, and it is now shared, and actually some of the structure is shared in this model, but of course it's a completely different model. So why buy the 800 instead of the classic V-twin 650 or 1050? So I think I have an answer to that, but let's just start first with this twin engine. This parallel twin engine has a 270-degree crank, which allows you to have a little bit more of a torquey feel, a little more of a thump kind of feel, a little uneven firing order that gives it a similar feel to something like a V-twin engine. So you do have the feel, but a parallel twin by nature tends to be on average a little bit quicker revving. And then the big thing is you've got 776cc engine here instead of a 649cc engine. So let's just talk about it compared to the 650 for a second. To me, that 650 class of bike, whether it's Suzuki, whether it's Kawasaki, whether it's something else, that general size of engine is kind of that perfect size for the on-street use. I used to own a Kawasaki Versus 650, which is a kind of a competitor to this, but the Versus is an on-road bike. It's not a true adventure bike or a somewhat off-road bike. And we're gonna talk about the off-road ability of this bike. But that 650 bike I used to call, and the same with V-Strom 650, it's a perfect one-person adventure bike. And I'm not saying that the seats aren't good on these 650s. I've reviewed the V-Strom 650. You can absolutely take a second person out. But to me, if you're touring with that second person, you're gonna kind of feel like it just could use a little bit more grunt. And even if you're not, a little bit more grunt just makes it a little bit more sporty. And I've always found like just a little bit more, sometimes enough. But in North America here, and at least where I live, here in New Brunswick, sometimes when you cross over that 1000cc barrier, insurance rates kind of jump up a little bit. And this gives you an in-between model that's not a big, heavy 1000cc bike that's great for taking two passengers. It just gives you that little bit more than the 650, but it's also a fully modern bike, and it gives you a few other features. So we're gonna talk about all of those right now. Let's start at the front, work our way through, and we'll get on the bike, look at the dash, look at everything in here. And again, if you have questions, just let me know. Let's go to the front. All right, take a look at the front of this bike. This is, again, where you figure out what the manufacturer intended with this bike. And you have a 21-inch front tire. So you've certainly got the ability and the idea that this can be an off-road bike. It gives you that little better approach angle with that larger diameter wheel. The rear wheel is smaller. We'll look at that in a little bit. But yeah, you do have the 21-inch here. And these are somewhat off-road tires. Now, I have a theory, and this is for me, if I was buying this bike, if you really want to do a lot of off-road, buy a dual sport. They're a little lighter, a little easier to manage, and they're better off-road. What these adventure bikes do, and I consider this to be an adventure bike, is it allows you to go down any road, whether it is a poorly paved, poorly maintained paved road, whether it's a dirt road, and even the odd packed in proper trail, this bike allows you to go there. And that's the real key of an adventure bike, is you can really go anywhere. One thing that people always ask is a tubed tire or a tubeless tire? tubed tire right here. So that's that answers the question I've been asked in the comments about the 650 in the past. I didn't double check the 650, but I certainly on the 800 here, it is a tube tire. And then you see a few other things in here. You've got the dual disc brakes, nothing fancy in the braking, but certainly enough braking power for what it is. You got the ABS ring there, so you know it's got ABS. We'll talk about ABS a little bit later. Then you've got the upside down forks here, which is not something you traditionally see on a dual sport bike. You do see this on more sport bikes. So quality suspension here, and these are fully adjustable, which I think is a really big piece to a bike that you may go on really rough roads or even slightly off-road, or you may go on highway trips or sporty riding. So having the ability to adjust your suspension, even if you don't know how to adjust it, really allows you to dial in this bike, not just for every trip that you're on or every road that you're on, but for as your skills and your trips change. If it's all highway, you can change your settings. If it's all really rough road, you can change your settings again. So it saves you from wanting to buy the new bike because this bike just isn't doing it for you, right? It allows you to adjust it at any time. Obviously, you've got the cool looking gold rims here, the spokes, looks great, looks the part. Let's move our way through. Taking a look at the heart of the bike here, a couple things you're not gonna see here is even the black paint on the frame has a metallic to it, the blue has a metallic to it, the yellow I don't think has that, but it's a nicely painted bike, nicely finished bike. But down here is this new engine. Again, all new engine for them. What's great about a parallel twin is it takes up a little bit less space than a V-twin, so you've got your mass centralized on here. Now this is just over a 500-pound bike, according to Suzuki's website. It does not feel like a 507-pound bike as the website says. So it does feel fairly light and compact, and that's because the weight's down low and it's all compressed in a tight spot, and that contributes to good on-road and off-road handling, having that weight sort of centralized and not sort of spread throughout. So good engine here. We'll do a comparison in the future compared to the standard bike, the GSX S with the same engine as this, and we'll compare this bike as well. But this one to me is a good engine for what's here. I don't think you need the V-twin. That was always their calling card. I don't think most people are gonna care too much whether it's a V-twin or this nice parallel twin. Again, that 270-degree crank really allows this to be a good on-road engine with that low torquey feel and that nice sort of rumble to it. So let's move our way back through and talk about a few more things. So before we go into too much of the technical side, we're going to show you the dash, explain some of the technology in this bike. I think it's important to just have a seat on this bike. Now, I'm about a 6-foot person. To get on any adventure bike, you do need to have a little bit of height or a lot of comfort with a motorcycle. This is a fairly tall bike, and you can compare seat heights across brochures, but seat heights never tell the full story. This is a nice narrow area here, which I appreciate, and a nice wide seat back here. If it's not as narrow here, it's gonna feel taller. So let me jump on. People always ask my inseam. I think it's about 32 inches, but I'm about a 6-foot person, proportionate, and let's jump on. So again, high kick over on the back, set the bike up, and I am just tippy-toed to reach here. Now, I feel like it's quite narrow here, but it is still a fairly tall bike. I believe it's got about 8.7 inches of suspension travel on the bike, and it's also got about the same of ground clearance. So good ground clearance and good suspension travel. You can soften the suspension a little bit to squat a tiny bit more, but at the end of the day, you can't really doctor much. These are tall bikes, which does a couple things for you. It gives you a really commanding view of the road. And again, you have this nice square seating position. Your legs aren't tucked back like that. You're not out in front of you. So it's a very comfortable long-term riding position. And then overall, we're gonna talk about wind protection as we get up to the dash here. There's pros and cons there. You do have an adjustable windshield. You do have the handguards here, which is gonna give you some wind protection and also some debris protection. If you're going down those gravel roads or those roads that might have stones that kick up, having those protect your hands is a nice piece. And it's not just sort of the wings out here. They do come back and connect to the handlebar, so it can take some impact that your hands don't have to take. What I like is that the mirrors are close. That gives you a nice wide view of angle, but the dash is further away. There's a pro and a con to that with the dash and the windshield where they are. We'll talk about that as we get a little closer and take a look at that. Overall, very, very comfortable bike and much, much lighter than it feels just standing across this bike. It really doesn't feel like it's that much weight. I have a 4-cylinder bike that weighs a little less than this, and it feels heavier than this twin cylinder that is taller and larger and overall heavier. All right, take a look at the dash here. One key thing on any adventure style bike is having a nice handlebar with lots of area to mount whatever you want to mount. If you wanted to mount a GPS, you can do that here, here, here. If you want to mount a phone, you can do the same thing. You can actually also add accessories up here. This bar that is part of the adjustable windshield is a place where there are mounts available for things like a GPS and that kind of thing. So you have the option to mount things on this bike. That's a key piece. And we're in a skewed wide angle view here. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's talk about this windshield. One thing about this windshield, I think it's sort of a win and a loss. It is an adjustable windshield, but I would have liked to see you not have to carry around an Allen key to adjust it. I would have liked it if it just had some sort of quick adjustment. It doesn't have that. Some people have complained that it's a little bit small. And if you take an overall look at the bike, it is a little small. Now, to me, I've driven a number of bikes with windshields that are very large, and there's a couple things that I don't like about them. Large windshields can sometimes give you some buffeting, but also on a really hot day, if you're on a tour and you take a jacket along that isn't super versatile, you can get quite hot in a big jacket on a fully protected adventure bike. So I'm actually okay that the windshield is here in the size it is, and I'll give you a reason why. To me, what a windshield should do is take the pressure and the energy loss of your body away. In other words, it should handle the wind as far as, you having to hang on and fight the wind with your body. I don't think it has to clear your helmet or anything else. I think your helmet does a good job of that. So to me, this still leaves you a little bit in the wind, but it takes the pressure of highway driving off of your body. And to me, that's perfectly fine. You still feel the wind, you still have the cooling effect, but you also have enough protection with the windshield to give your body a little bit of protection. But again, it's a long ways out from where you are as a rider. So now let's zoom in to the dash here. Oh boy, you got a lot of reflections. So let's see how well we can do in this bright daylight as we turn the dash on and show you what the dash looks like. Now again, filming a screen is always misleading. You can see my camera cord in there, you can see my hand. Filming a screen is misleading because screens are very, very difficult to film. I can tell you that from my own personal experience, you can clearly see every piece of this. And this is a nice screen to me because it balances the amount of blank space with information. There is a lot of information on the side. So let's just talk briefly about it. Basically, you have adjustable traction control, ABS, and throttle settings that allow you to have a really customized setup. Traction control is super important to have adjustable because it's a drive-by-wire system. You can change your throttle system. So think about your car, if it might have sport mode and eco mode. This is the same kind of thing with that sort of throttle feel. And then the ABS is also adjustable, which again allows you to have a little bit more of an off-road oriented bike. Colors on this screen are actually fantastic, harder to show on screen here. You have some warning lights off to the side, gear indicator there, 6-speed transmission. QS, this bike has an up and down quick shifter, and I think that's a really key piece to making this bike really enjoyable for a longer tour. It also just makes it more fun. 26 degrees, you got some outside stuff. Outside, 26 degrees is the bike. I had it running just briefly just to hear it. In fact, let's just start it up right now. So we'll start it up there. Again, I don't have the mic or the bike mic'd properly, but I am wearing a mic, so you can maybe hear it a little bit there. 27 degrees is your coolant temperature, 18 degrees is your outside temperature, and you can cycle through all kinds of things like your fuel efficiency, distance to empty there. You've got kilometers per liter. Now, I usually measure in liters per 100 kilometers, so you can customize that as well. Trip 2 there, kilometers per liter for trip 1. And again, so it's average and instant fuel efficiency, and I'm cycling through just in this area here. So we'll put it back on the odometer, and then your voltage there reading as well. And then the fuel gauge just above it. So kind of everything you need. If I rev this up again, I'm not miking the bike, but it does have a nice sound to it for sure, even though it's a parallel twin. Some people think that maybe the V-twin might sound better. I think this is perfectly fine. Permanent clock up top there. Let's turn the bike back off. One thing we should focus at is the adjustable suspension. Let's just show you the top end of those. So again, looking at the top of your suspension here, it's not, you do need a tool to adjust it, but you can see that they're, both fork tubes are identical here. So it says tension, that's usually the compression, not the rebound. So softer and harder there. But yeah, you have got the same adjustment on both sides of the top of the fork tubes here. So good adjustable suspension. Now let's take a look at the controls. So on any modern Suzuki, there are the controls you can see and the controls that you can't see. And when we talk about the ones you can't see, something like the quick shifter is something that most people don't notice right away, although you can see it if you look at the right spots. There's also some controls here that you can't see with this. Because this is a drive-by-wire system, when you pull in the clutch here, if you don't release or don't rev the engine enough when you release the clutch, the Suzuki will give you an extra couple hundred RPM just to allow it to not stall out, which is nice as you get tired, as you maybe learn to ride, or as you're a little bit more sloppy. It's not going to be a real jerky let off if you haven't given it enough clutch to let it out. So again, I can touch that start button, it starts instantly. You can have some revs added for you if you don't rev it enough. So that's just a couple nice things to have. And again, if you start off in first gear and don't quite give it enough revs, it'll give you the revs, and then you can quick shift from there up or down, and then you can just pull the clutch in to stop. So you have the ability to have that quick shifter on or off. And again, just some nice cool features you can't see. Now let's talk about the things you can see. Flash to pass for your lights there, high beams right there, nice LED lighting on this. We should show you the front. It's got a little different face in the 650. You got your control there for your dash, your mode section there, signals and horn down there. Start button, hazards button are on the other side. You know what, let's just quickly show you them there. There is no cruise control on this bike, so that's what some people may want on their adventure bike. Sorry for the bright sunshine, hard to see. You can see the hazard lights down there as well. And again, we talked about the protection that you get from those guards there as well. So the start button and the kill switch is all one piece here. Tap down to start, full on for kill. So again, that individual, actually I don't have the key on, but the individual tap will start it. You don't have to hold it down, just kind of a nice Suzuki feature. Let's take a look at the front lights, rear lights, and then we'll talk about why you should maybe get this bike and why you should not get this bike. All right, filming on a nice bright sunny day. Let's see, do we get a headlight that turns on without the engine? Yes, we do. Bright white headlight there, the top one being your low beam and the bottom one being your high beam. Now what's cool about these LED lights, and again, you're not lined up to see them perfectly there, LED lights have that white light that helps your eyes identify things better, and that's because this is a closer to daylight color. So I always like to say it helps you tell the difference between a rabbit and a rock, or a raccoon and a rock, something that's going to run out in front of you and something that's not. So again, nice to have those bright LED lights, and again, a little cleaner, smaller face here than on something like the 650, which has a little bit bigger lighting in there. The other thing you do have, we'll turn those hazard lights on full there. You have the LED signal lights kind of tucked in nice and close to the headlight to just give you, not something that if you fell, it's going to right away damage. But again, nice to have LEDs, and they're LEDs front and rear on this bike. I don't think I need to show you the rear. Well, maybe I'll just show you the rear real quickly just so you know what's going on, but same signal lights in the rear. So nothing too fancy on the rear other than your tail light here is a white tail light, which I guess is a little different than regular tail. I say white, but it's kind of that mirrored finish. Now let's see, bike is on, tail light is not, so let's just start it up for a quick second again. You can hear a little bit of the rumble there, and oh, tail light is on. I'm just looking at it from the top angle. There we go. I'm on a bad angle that the camera doesn't catch. I can see this much clearer in person. Actually, there you go. When I put my hand in front, you can almost see it better there. So again, camera's just not picking it up great. Let's see if it helps if I hit the brakes a little bit. If you're wondering why this bike looks to be steaming or smoking a little bit, it's a very cool morning here. The bike inside temperature came from the dash temperature came from the bike when we were inside. It's actually cooler, so a little bit of normal we'll call it steam, smoke, whatever you want to call it, out of the exhaust for the temperature that we're in right now. So let's talk about why you would buy the 800 over the 650 or the 1000. Well, first of all, the 1000 is just a bigger bike. And for someone like me, I generally stay away from crossing that 1000cc mark on some bikes because they get into, especially on an adventure bike, it just feels like a big bike. And again, that's perfectly fine. It's great for taking two people. But if you do a majority of your riding on your own, why do the 800 over the 650 is I think the big question people are asking. And as someone who's driven not the V-Strom 650 for years, but the direct competitor to that, the Kawasaki Versa 650 for years, one of the things I found about this class of bike, especially in the 650 range, is they do everything well, but nothing exceptional. So, and for instance, if you wanted a better dirt bike, there are better dirt bikes out there. If you wanted a better touring bike, there's better touring bikes out there. If you wanted a faster bike, there's faster bikes out there. The one thing I found with the 650 class is they lose a little bit of playfulness with that second person, and again, they're not sporty fast bikes, whereas the 800 gives you that little bit of extra sport without crossing into a much bigger bike. If you take a passenger, I think it'll lose a little bit less playfulness even with that passenger on. For me, it's the technology that sells this bike to me the most. Having that quick shifter is fun. Having that little bit extra power is fun. I don't view an adventure bike like this as something that I'm going to take down crazy trails. What I view an adventure bike like this is exactly what the tires say this is. This is an on-road bike that if you happen to go down a really rough, poorly paved road, not a problem. Hit some potholes, not a problem. Want to go down that dirt road? Go ahead, go explore. Want to go down that, you know, hard packed trail shortcut? Not a problem. But primarily you're riding this on road and you don't have the concerns of finding a road that you can't go down. And that's what this bike does great. And because I'm primarily riding on road, I like some sport bike features. I like the fact that the throttle has multiple tuning modes, so it can feel a little bit more jumpy, or it can sit back and be relaxed when I want that. I like the fact that the ABS is tunable for the type of terrain I'm on. I like the fact that it has traction control. Whether it's because I'm driving athletically and I want to have a little extra control, or whether it's because I'm running into rainy, slippery conditions when I'm out on an adventure or a tour, that's really good as well. And I like the fact that it has that quick shifter. That up-down quick shifter makes this a sporty bike to ride, and that's kind of the point of a bike like this. The controversial piece that I actually like as well is I like the fact it doesn't have too big of a windshield. I've driven adventure bikes and other types of bikes in the past, and I always wear a full jacket, and I generally wear a jacket that is ventable. And my most recent jacket is fully vented, and it's just enough, it's adaptable to be fully vented, and it's just enough that on my naked bike, it gives me enough cooling, but it would not be enough venting on an adventure bike. And if you're gonna go on an adventure, you wanna take one jacket. So to me, the fact that this windshield is a little bit smaller than some others, obviously the aftermarket can fix that if you want, but for me, that allows me to get the airflow I need in the warmer weather, but also the wind protection that I need just to give me the less pressure on my chest and that kind of thing. So to me, this is one of those ideal bikes that does everything well and gives me just enough more than the 650 that this is the one I would choose. Does that mean the 650 is not right for you? That's up for you to decide. And again, there's the 1000 as well in this lineup. So again, I've done a review on the 650 on this channel, so you can compare them back to back. I've done a review of the GSX-8S, GSX-8S, which shares the engine with this. You can have that review as well. And if I didn't answer your questions, let me know in the comments below so we can get back to those questions in the future. And I want to thank McLean Sports here for giving me complete access to their lineup, because if you have questions, they just let me come in and answer them for you. So I want to really appreciate them for that. Do me a favor, if you made it this far, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, give McLean's a big thank you. And if you want to see this bike in person, again, this is a demo model, so you could buy this for less money than you would a brand new model. It's only got 2,500 kilometers on it. You know, it's worth taking a look at, maybe buying this fall instead of waiting till the spring when it will most definitely be gone. So there you go. Swing by McLean's Sports in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and we'll talk to you in the next one.